Hi, welcome back to another episode of Project Management for Small Business. I'm your host, Anthony Pavelich. Today I have with me Brandon White, who is a serial entrepreneur with 2 exits under his belt, a former venture capitalist, and has worked in management at a Fortune 500 company. He started his professional career in what he calls the business of his dreams in technology in 1996 as the founder and CEO of Worldwide Angler Inc., where he managed to build the largest social networking site for sport fishermen on the internet. Brandon led the company to a successful exit to a large media company. He's currently the co-founder of FileFinder.io. It's a startup SaaS company based in Silicon Valley that helps you find files you know you have but can't find faster. Brandon also teaches entrepreneurs how to build a business in 13 easy to follow steps in his Build a Business program. He's taught business and digital marketing courses for entrepreneur students of Damon, John, and Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank, as well as real estate investors such as Grant Cardone. He has his MBA from UNC Chapel Hill and a master's and BA in psychology from Washington College. Brandon lives in Half Moon Bay, California, with his wife, his 3 Jack Russells, a toy poodle, and a cat. He enjoys biking, surfing, and going fast. So let's get started. Hi, Brandon. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Anthony, thanks a lot, man. Hopefully you're staying safe up there.
I am. Hopefully you are as well. I'm isolating as much as I need to right now, except for having to go out to the grocery store occasionally.
Well, it's nice to be able to see you in a video. So Zoom's making a bunch of money.
It is. And actually, it's interesting. And this is just a side note that Zoom and I believe a lot of the websites, a lot of the web services have either reduced their cost, made it free, or increased their basic free accounts for people for right now. So it's a good thing that they're doing for people.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's good that people start to use the technology and realize that when you work from home, you can actually have someone who's 3,000 miles away from you right here.
Exactly. And it's like they're right next door or right in the same room as you. And you don't have to, and I don't have to be 6 feet away from my monitor.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Can actually be close to the webcam.
Exactly. Or for people that are not in the US, that's 2 meters. Because I have to know both. I'm a dual citizen, like we were talking about.
There you go.
So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, Brandon, and about your company and how you got started.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. And thanks again for having me on. Well, I've been an entrepreneur my entire career, which I'm not that old, but does span 20 years. And I started out with building a large social networking site that actual term wasn't used, but I built the largest social networking site for sport fishermen, of all things, on the internet. And I started in 1986. I started in 1996. And it was definitely the Wild West back then, but
it was after the AOL man would crawl the screen, though.
Well, it actually wasn't, because I actually worked for America Online, believe it or not. I did. I'll get to that. So I started the company. I built it out of my spare bedroom. Truth be told, and I'm not recommending this to any entrepreneurs out there. I'm not saying to do it, but I'm not saying not to do it. I built it on trading stocks and switching balances on credit cards is the truth. And one screen I was trading stocks with my eventual co-founder, and the other screen we were building the site. And it was a crazy time. Ultimately wound up raising about $1 million, had never written a business plan. I was a psychology major, and I was working on my master's in psychology. I actually quit once we'd raised $1 million. Started to build this whole company in this whole first .com boom. The market crashed, and I said, look, the internet's not going away. It's sort of like what's happening today. I don't know where we'll be when you air this, but everybody thinking that, stock market's going to die and everything's going to happen. It's not going to die. It's going to come back. And when the internet crashed, I said, this is not going away. So I bought the company, effectively the assets, back from the investors and restarted it. Within 3 weeks, we were cash flow positive, and I ran it for another 10 years. Basically, I turned it on, not complete automation, but I had outsourced a lot of the things going on there. And I know you're going to ask me about project management. And ultimately turned it on automatic and became in my career, I became a venture capitalist. I worked for 2 venture firms in Northern Virginia, investing in technology, security, and big data. And I did do a tour at America Online, actually, in what became the first marketing analysis, first big data division of anybody on the internet. And I was working in marketing analysis and building businesses there in the premium services division. And then ultimately came back, went to business school, finished my master's in psychology, which I had quit. I'm completely overeducated, but my mom I was raised as a single mom, and single moms are going to tell you to buy insurance policies, and insurance policies for single moms are get education so that you can get a job. So I got my MBA, I finished my master's in psychology, and I really took some time off to figure what I was going to do. And I did consulting, and then started a company that had a vision that the CRM market, which I think is still broken, is broken. And why do you have to input data and record things? Why isn't it all automatic? So I built an application that did that and raised some money. And then ultimately, I am where I am now. I had exited another company that I had started. And then last summer was sitting around, and all through this journey, as you know, Anthony, you surround yourself with fellow entrepreneurs or people who are in your industry. And I had helped, people always said, I had raised a whole bunch of money all along the way. The one company I raised several $1 million for from professional VCs and things like that. And basically, people would come to me and they say, Brandon, how do you do this? Or how do you build a business plan? Or how do I start a business? So I had started recording these. I started answering the same question over and over again, is really what happened. And
and that's how you discover the need.
That's how I did. I mean, people would come to me and I'm saying the same thing. I mean, there's different things, as you know, when you do businesses, but there's a lot. 70% of this stuff is all the same. So I got tired. I don't mean that in a bad way, because I will help anybody, because there's a ton of people that helped me in my career that didn't need to help me, that ultimately allowed me to get where I am today. And I'm really grateful for that. So I will help anybody, but I started recording myself on just a phone, and I threw it up on WordPress, and I would just say, hey, just go here first, get all that, and then you can come back and I'll answer the questions. And ultimately, the long and short of it is that people kept asking for stuff, and I professionalized it, and I wound up teaching for some guys on Shark Tank. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention their name, so I'm not going to, but Shark Tank and some other popular personalities out there. And they took my course and they gave it to their students. And then ultimately last summer, I was like, hey, I'm just going to build my own brand. I'm going to get back into doing media, which I really love doing, and started this course. And it's been, it's really taken off. And long and short of it is I teach how to build a business plan in 13 slides. And not only do I teach the business plan, but I teach mind, body, business, because being an entrepreneur, I can teach all the basics of how to build a business plan, how to build financials, how to get product market fit, how to test it, how to do all those things. And, using a lot of the stuff we use here in Silicon Valley. But at the same time, if you don't have your mind right and you don't have your body right, it's just not going to happen. You will burn out. And I have burned out. I've been there, and it's ugly. So I teach mind, body, spirit, or mind, body, business. And I focus on the fundamentals of what you need to do in your business, and then teach those other elements of it so that you can actually make it through, because it's it's not easy to build a company. That's for sure.
Well, no, and I like what you said about the mind, body, business, because it is true that entrepreneurs are a lot of times isolated, work from home, and the mind and the body, if you don't keep that up, your business is going to suffer. And we can see that right now with the way the world is, and so many people isolating, that it is a very important time that people have to keep their mind in the right space. And we have to find a way to keep our body in the right space, even though we can't go out there and go to the gym or, meet with other people as we normally would.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'd say that anybody out there who's thinking about starting a business or has a business and would know this, that even when you are in an office with people, being an entrepreneur is a very isolating place because there's a tremendous amount of responsibility, especially when you have employees. You're responsible for people's lives and their mortgages and their families, and they're relying on you to do that, so that while you may have camaraderie with your people who work with you on your team, you have a tremendous amount of responsibility. And it is really lonely, on top of the fact that I was trying to count, Anthony, how many people told me no in my lifetime as an entrepreneur. No, you can't do it. No, that won't work. No, this, no, that. So not only are you lonely or, isolated in that sense, but you're constantly being told, no, it won't work. No, I don't think that'll happen. So in order to get through that, you really have to have a regimented schedule or program of how you're going to control of many things, your self-talk, it's that, visualize where you're going to go, and then take care of your body, because it's the engine that runs everything. Your mind, it runs everything. Without that engine, and I think we forget that. So, and not to mention the exercise portion of it, which you could do anywhere, any type of exercise. I love to ride my bike and lift weights. That's when your mind's going to rest, and that's when you're going to get some of the very best ideas that you could ever imagine. So,
when you're not trying.
I'm sorry?
When you're not trying, sometimes it just comes.
Yeah, like sitting at your desk for 15 hours grinding it out is not work. I think here in the United States, and I know you're a dual citizen, but I'm sure it's true in Canada as well, maybe not as much as in America, is there's this belief that if you're not grinding it out, if you're not at your keyboard, if you're not, I don't know, writing something or doing something or building or actually building it with your hands, that you're not working. And I think that's completely false.
I agree.
Right?
I fully agree.
Yeah. I mean, that is completely wrong. If you're going to sit and work anything over, I would argue anything over 6 hours at any length, like you're going to decrease your mental capacity and your creativity and everything. So I tell, my advice to anybody out there who is starting a business, has started a business, and is just starting to feel the pressure, even people who've got it over the hump and, are over $1 million in revenue, I'd say you've got to figure out how to have physical exercise in your regime, or long-term, and it's going to be really tough.
I mean, even if it's just going out for a walk. We did that today, just took the dogs for a walk around the block, and just to get out, refresh, and get some air, and step away for a minute, because especially right now, more so than normal, we're inside and you're going to go stir crazy. And even on a normal business day, a normal entrepreneurship day for a person, or even 9 to 5er that you're going to the office, it's good to just step away. And I think, I know I've had bosses that if you're not at your computer working, or you're not in your office, they think you're out screwing off. And it's just not the case.
It's not the case. And I would totally agree with you. Just a simple 45-minute walk will change everything. And the other thing that I caught when you said it, which I think is super important, is where you probably, if you have a significant other in your life, whoever that is, being an entrepreneur, we forget that they're in it too. And it may not feel like it, but they live with us. They help us. They support us. And taking a walk together, with putting your phone in your minimum in your back pocket, if not leave it at home, will not only improve your health, but it will improve whatever relationship you have. And I think people will be surprised how far that goes. My wife and I try to take a walk at least every other day or so along the beach where we live. And it's amazing what we talk about on those walks versus what we do. And she works right next to me here at home. But it seems like we exchange a lot more on those walks. So
yeah, because you're business minded a lot during the day, I think. I found that out now that we're both working from home, at least during this time, that the conversations that you think that you think you should have, your mind is always focused on the next task or what you need to do. So some of those conversations are put off and you think, oh, we can talk about that later tonight over dinner, but it never really happens because by that time you're dead and you don't want to talk after you've been talking all day long. It's like today I teach after this until 10 o'clock tonight, Eastern time with a college class. So 10 o'clock tonight, I'm not going to want to talk. So yeah, it's like when you're off and you're doing little things like that, like walking the dogs, whatever, it's perfect time just to have those conversations that you let just flow freely and not, have to worry about what's going on in your email or,
Yeah, I totally agree. Your mindset isn't there. The only thing that I am going to add, I don't know your listeners or entrepreneurs and people how to do project management and all of that. So they're going to think I'm a little non-traditional with this sort of advice that I'm actually not talking about the 13 slides or whatever that is that maybe people expected. But I will say this, that one of the most important pieces of advice that I can give entrepreneurs, and I tell entrepreneurs, is not only should you take a walk or do some sort of thing with your partner, but you should hug your partner every single morning. And I think that entrepreneurs totally forget that because we get out of bed. Well, if you haven't already reached for your phone, you're about to, right? So you don't have any engagement, and just hugging your partner will release things in your brain, and it will, at a minimum, at least allow them to realize that you appreciate them, and it will make yourself feel better too. So, people always want this advice from me, like, how do I run the numbers, or how do I build my elevator pitch, and my thing is, I can teach you all that, but if you don't have your mind and your body, and in your mind, I include your spirit, whatever that is, and your relationship, it just isn't going to matter. So, I'm just going to throw that in here now as hug your partner every morning.
I like that. I love that. It is an important thing to maintain that relationship because they will listen to lots of things and lots of gripes that we have, and they may not understand them, but they listen. So it's good to appreciate them as well.
And they deal with a lot of uncertainty. I mean,
exactly.
I always give my wife a ton of credit. We've been together, I think, 23 years. We've been married more than half, and we've always lived together. But the thing that I'm always really appreciative of is, can you imagine yourself living with someone where you actually, if the business is going well, we've lived in times when our businesses are killing it, like the business we've had, and we're making a whole bunch of money. And then something like this happens, which if your listeners are here, we're in this coronavirus, and all of a sudden things can end like this, and there's a ton of uncertainty. And sometimes it's not the coronavirus. Sometimes it's just a shipment doesn't get here, or something. If you're in the clothing business, you miss a season, and now you're behind on cash flow. Like, things don't always go well when you run a business, and the uncertainty that can create, especially if you have you have kids or a family. I just think they don't get enough credit. So I'm only saying these things because these are the things that I teach my students that are some of the most important things that they don't necessarily always expect, but they get from me. And at the end of the day, that's what really will build a successful company for you.
That's great advice. I love it. So let's talk about your business then. And you said I was going to ask you these questions. So how do you manage your projects? What tools do you use? Are there things that you've done in the past that you don't do anymore because they didn't work? And
so I will go through our stack, and the stack is pretty easy because it's open in a bunch of tabs on my browser. Here is we use a ton of different applications because I have not found in my career, at least not yet, one size fits all. So,
and you never will.
No,
that's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate, but it also is a testament to entrepreneurs who pick one thing, do it really well, and they do it really well, and then that's what happens. But we do use So to communicate, we use actually several platforms. We use Zoom, we use Google Hangouts, and we use FaceTime. To do specific project management when we're building software, which a lot of my companies, which I do, are building software, we use Jira, mainly because the engineers generally like that. For build a business, our content solutions are, which is all of your social media outreach, your blog posts, your projects, your how many things you're going to respond to, is all handled in Trello for us.
I like Trello. I use actually Trello and Jira Jira for one of my clients and Trello for myself.
So I have an executive assistant who's been with me for 5 years, and she's absolutely incredible to run and deal with me in this madness for as long as she's done it. But she does it, and she liked Trello better, so we stayed with Trello. I do have I have a marketing lady and a graphics expert, Alan, who's out there. And we actually use Asana for that. Okay. And that was just one of the things that, Anthony, that I do with people is I don't want to dictate to necessarily people on my team what we should use. I'll make a recommendation, but at the end of the day, I'm going to trust that they know more than I do, and they should know more than I do in these certain, the certain verticals that they're hired to do. And I want them to have ownership of it. So in my case, Chelsea said, hey, let's use Asana. I know it, and let's use that. And I said, hey, let's go do it. And then Gia says, hey, let's use Trello for this. So I don't mind it because one is you get smarter by using multiple things, and you're not going to have one thing for all. So that's what really all of our projects, everywhere from, we do use Slack. I have 3 Slack channels here, or tabs, I should say, open. So we do use Slack, and we also where most of us are on Macs. So we use iMessage. It's secure. I don't think a lot of people realize this, but you can actually share your screen on iMessage right from the app. It's very quick and it's secure. And we exchange messages there. But we do have very specific channels in our Slack channels, and Slack seems to work. If there'll be another one in 5 years, and we'll switch to that. But it was, in general, easy to stand up, and most of the people know how to use it. So I think it's funny, Anthony, I'm sure you feel the same way. 20 years ago, I feel like I'm in the old BBS boards. I mean, this isn't rocket science. It's just a cool logo on the old BBS board that works better. So,
yeah, I like you. I use so many different things. Jira for one of my clients that I work with. Another client, we use Avasa. One customer that I deal with, everything's online through their system. But we use Slack to communicate. Google Hangouts, because the company I use Jira with, they want all their contractors use Google Hangouts. So even though I like Jira, I do like Jira because, like you said, it's engineers like it, and there's so many different expansions that you can put into Jira that helps make it like one of the better ones, I think.
Yeah, the way I would describe it is, I think Jira, from a technical standpoint, is a very deep program that has all the hooks and all the things you need. It's just the user interface, in my opinion, not as easy as Trello and Asana. No. But it's technically better. It's sort of the analogy that I use when people say, hey, what email program should I use? And I'll say, well, go use MailChimp or ConvertKit. Usually I say ConvertKit to start, but then ultimately you're going to move up the chain and you're going to go to something like SendGrid. So, but SendGrid isn't as easy on an interface as ConvertKit. So I'd say that same thing with Jira. I'm trying to think, Anthony, what else we use. I will tell you that, being not promoting what I teach, but at the end of the day, what we use to run our business is a business plan. And we are very stringent. All of the things that go into that project management software, so to speak, is derived from our business plan, of which we ultimately revisit on a quarterly basis. and then we take those goals or whatever they are and translate them into smaller projects or sprints, if you will. I don't know if your listeners are more software techie or whatever it is, but
probably, I'm certified in both traditional and agile, and I reach out to both. I think it's, if you don't understand what they are, then I don't think you need to understand the actual full terms as an entrepreneur. Sometimes I think you have to find what works for your company. And I've interviewed people that still use sticky notes and a whiteboard. And if that works for your company, you don't need to be all techie and do it, just as long as it helps you keep track of, what you're doing.
I would agree. I agree 100%. I think the main thing is to what you just said is the important point, which is keep track of what you're doing and measure success.
Exactly.
And
that it works for you.
Exactly. If that's Post-it notes on your whiteboard and you're going to move them along the chain like a Trello board or a Asana or a Jira, then go ahead and do that. But don't tell me that it's in your head.
Yeah. But I think what you said is also important and is so true for a lot of people, that you're going to start out simple, but eventually you're going to move up. Eventually that simplicity is, if your business scales, that simplicity is not going to work forever. So you need to make sure that you understand what you need when you start looking, and get some advice on what works.
Yeah, I think you absolutely, one of the things I think being a really, I'm not going to use the word cheap. People might describe me as that, but frugal as an entrepreneur is that we want to do it ourselves and we want to learn. What's that?
Cost conscious.
Yes, cost conscious. I like that even better. Maybe that's a Canadian term, but
well, if it is, I don't know. I've only been here since 2011, so maybe they're rubbing off on me a lot.
Well, we're going to adopt it. Is sometimes it pays, no pun intended, to hire an expert, and that's just the truth. It was a very hard lesson because it's very hard sometimes to spend the money. I think you need to do your diligence on whoever you hire or whatever service you do. But I can tell you that in the last 10 years of my entrepreneur career, whatever company, hiring an expert has propelled our business forward and grown our sales, which is ultimately what we're trying to do, more than almost anything. So I just wanted to point that out, because I think as entrepreneurs, we don't always have the resources or the money or whatever, but I can give you an example. I am pretty good in Photoshop. I consider myself decent, but it's not going to have that complete polished look, but it usually does the job. And with Build a Business, I decided that I'm going to outsource all graphics. No matter what it is, I am not going to go into Photoshop myself. And we are eons ahead of where we would be, because the hours that it would have taken me to do that, not to mention just, I don't know what I don't know with the, exactly, using these programs moves us forward. So I'm just building on that point that you made, that get some expert advice, hire some advice, when you can, and sometimes even when you don't think you can, because it will move your business forward. I did the same thing, I'll tell you right now, with Facebook ads. I used to run the ads myself years ago. I'm pretty good at it. I understand customer segmentation and all that, but I am not an expert, and I outsourced that to a person I trust. And I'll tell you that we're 3 years ahead of where we would have been, for sure.
Well, and that's one thing you have to learn as an entrepreneur too. And it's, you may think you have to do everything, and you may have to in the beginning because you can't afford to, and you can't necessarily outsource. And there may be things that you really enjoy doing that you still have to give up, because the time you spend doing those things costs you more than it does to hire an expert to do it, in the time and money you could be spending to propel your business forward. As well as there are things that you're not going to enjoy doing, that if you're not enjoy doing them, you're going to procrastinate. It's going to take you longer to do them. So why not push those along to somebody as well? So
I
what?
totally agree.
So let's get back to the entrepreneur portion of it. What inspired you to be an entrepreneur? Was there one thing that, one person, one book, one part of your life you're like, I want to do this. I want to be out on my own. I want to be an entrepreneur.
I think I just liked making money. Even I like making money by solving, and I'm saying that the deeper, that's like the first layer, right? But of the onion. But truthfully, I like solving problems that makes people's lives better and being rewarded with something that keeps score, that I could quantify that. And truthfully, that is what money is really a scorecard. Are you solving a problem? Is your solution good enough that someone will pay you? And the truth is that I think entrepreneurship found me, and I didn't find entrepreneurship. And what I mean by that is, in the beginning of my career, so to speak, is I worked on a tree nursery, truthfully, making $8 an hour. And I felt stuck. My mom said, hey, you need to get back into school because it's a place where you can find yourself and you're going to have options, because I had a college education. I'm working on a tree nursery, making $8 an hour. And I'm in this sort of hamster wheel. She said, go back and get your degree. And during that degree, I went back and I'm a fisherman, and I was fishing and I was looking for information. I originally was going to build a magazine. Truthfully, there was no magazine that had the fishing information that I believed a angler of my level would want or need. So I went to build the fishing magazine, and truthfully, I didn't have enough money in my bank account. There's this thing called the internet that I played around with college, which, this is 95 when I'm coming up with this idea, 1995. And I was like, I think I can put this thing online. And it was really a function of not having enough money. I went out, I started hanging out in the computer lab again, which I had done before. I found the smartest guy I could. I got a job on a spinach farm. I used that money to pay him, and I started the company that way. And when I mean entrepreneurship found me, I mean, going back to selling lemonade on the farm that I grew up on as a small kid, that was simple. The guys didn't have anything to drink. We lived in the middle of nowhere. I set up a stand. I charged $1 for, I don't know, I'm making that up right back then. Maybe it was 50 cents. 50 cents, and that was easy. That was a pretty simple market to own because there was no other thing. And that whether or not they felt sorry for my brother and I don't know. But truth is, we made good lemonade and people would buy it. But I didn't say I want to be an entrepreneur. The truth is that I had I still do, a undergraduate in psychology, and I was getting a master's in psychology because I love psychology, and I thought I could go out and I could help people by being a counselor and doing some things that I grew up playing lacrosse in Baltimore, and I had 3 ACL reconstructions. And I had it, luckily enough, I had a sports psychologist working with me. I just always loved the power of, I learned at a young age of what your mind can do when you program it correctly. Mm-hmm. And that always fascinated me. So the truth is that, maybe I would have been an entrepreneur because even as a counselor or as a therapist, you're going to run your own business. But the fishing thing just found me, and it was out of a need. And it turns out that there was a need, and we started getting traction. And then I think when that door opened to me and what being an entrepreneur affords you, I'm a type A person. I love solving problems and making people's lives better. And I think I realized that about myself. And I'm not saying that you can't do that in a corporate structure, but truthfully, I'm not built for that. The walls of those structures or how those businesses work don't really fit me well. I like an unstructured environment where there's chaos and there needs to be you got to put that puzzle together. And then once the engine starts going and you're going to scale, I'm not saying that I get bored, because I have a great appreciation. There is great skill in taking a process and scaling it, and taking a business from 1 million to 7, from 7 to 12, from 12 to 50, and from 50 to several hundred million. Each one of those stages has its own skill set. For me, I think I just like the initial stages of uncertainty, risk, and taking this craziness and trying to put it together in a way that turns into, you take a hobby or an idea, you turn this idea into a product, and then taking the product to a business, and then proving that the business can work. And then that's really where my skill set is. So that's a long answer, Anthony.
No, it's okay. It's good, because it also seems like that's what you do with your business styles, help other people realize that same process.
I do. Like, I love basically hearing what someone's idea is. And then I built this process over 20 years that just works. And it's not, I'm not taking credit for it. It is a new approach, but it's a new approach that came to me from taking everything that I've learned over 20 years from all the great entrepreneurs, the brand names, and my mentor, who you wouldn't know if I said his name, but he sold 2 companies. He took a company public, and it was bought by Warren Buffett, and he was on the board with Warren Buffett. And I've taken all of these things and then made it my own. I'm a big Bruce Lee fan, so absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own, and come up with this process that seems to work relatively well. And we've had really great results. I met a lady on a Friday in a mastermind group. She was outraged. She was going to go raise money. I looked at her pitch deck on Saturday. I said, hey, look, this is not going to work. We redid the pitch deck on Sunday. We redid the financials, and within 3 weeks, she had raised $1.8 million. I'm not taking credit that, because she had a very good idea. But we took that idea and made it into a story that made sense from not only the story as the market need, but also a business story. So, like, for me, that's super rewarding. I think the only other analogy I'd offer you is, when I started fishing, I wanted to catch fish. And once I learned how to catch fish, I wanted to catch a lot of fish. And then I wanted to catch big fish. And all I did was want to catch big fish. And then I wanted to catch a lot of big fish. And then I got tired of catching all those big fish in different ways. And I just want to take people fishing and watch them catch the fish and take their picture. And for me, and that's really where in my fishing, I don't know what you want to call it, progress or evolution, is where I am. I'd much rather take you fishing, teach you how to fish, and take your picture and see how excited you are. And I think that's where, I'm not saying I'm at the end of my entrepreneur journey building companies, because I'm building a software company here in Silicon Valley with a bunch of amazing co-founders, company called File Finder that helps you find your files. So imagine being able to find the file that you have but can't find. We're building that.
Which we all have.
Yeah. And that was out of pure need. Again, entrepreneurship seems to find me, is that I watched my wife struggle for an hour looking for a file that she absolutely knows she had, but couldn't find because she couldn't figure out whether it was in email, whether it was on Slack, whether it was in Google Drive. And not only that, is it's not the Boolean search doesn't work the way that your human mind would. So we built a completely new search technology that actually works how your mind works. And I don't want to get into that right now, but entrepreneurship just seems to find me in those ways. And I think if people are listening to your show and wanting to become an entrepreneur, what my advice would be is don't try to set out and become an entrepreneur. Just set out to solve a problem. And if the problem's big enough and you solve it, really well, people will pay you money for that. And once they do that, you've by default become an entrepreneur. So I would frame it.
I think that's perfect advice. I think that's a lot of people want to. And go out there and they think they're going to make money quick, and that's not how it happens. You have to build your business. You have to find that problem you want to solve. And if you find the problem you want to solve and you start solving the problem, then the business will come to you.
And that's really it. So I think people will try to force it. And if you want to start your own business, that's great. And being an entrepreneur, especially in time, now, is sexy and it has all of this cachet about it. But just solve a problem that you have, because every day we have some sort of problem, in whether it's our job, our life, our relationship. There's so many things that can be improved. And as long as you can do that 10x better than current solutions, then you're going to find yourself a business. So I think sometimes the business that people are looking for is right in front of them. They just haven't taken the time to sit back and analyze what their current environment is and what problem they can solve.
That's great. I hate to do this, but we're getting close to time. So before we head out, I do want to find out, if people want to get more information about you and your business, what's the best way for them to do it?
The best way is, I will give you my email. My website is Brandon, BRANDONC White.com. My email address is really simple, and I will answer. It is b@BrandonCWhite.com. And I will even give my phone number. I would prefer you text me, but my phone number is 415-429-1229. I will respond. It might take me a day or two, but I will respond. But yeah, if you visit my website at BrandonCWhite.com, all my contact information is there. And if you're interested in building a business, you will find everything that we offer.
You'll find, yes, your course is there, your podcast is there, everything's there. So I've been to your website.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for you having me on here.
I'm grateful to have you on. I appreciate it. It's been a great conversation. A lot of value you've given, a lot of good advice. So hopefully that we'll run into each other again.
Yeah,
stay
thank
safe.
You so much. And wash your hands.
Wash your hands too. And stay safe. Take care. Thank you, Brandon. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Biker PM. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think. And remember, if you're an entrepreneur that wants to be with like-minded individuals and improving their project management skills, join the Biker PM Facebook group. Until next time.